Over 600 million mussels are produced in the UK every year, and while there is a significant wild fishery, the vast majority are actually cultivated. Now, one method of cultivation is called rope grown. This is where you dangle a rope into the sea, the spat of these little creatures settles naturally onto the rope, and when they're ready for harvest, you just pull the rope up. And now this method of harvesting has actually been called the most sustainable source of omega-3s. Well, these little creatures are actually packed with omega-3s, as well as being low in fat and high in protein.
I'm going to show you just how easy and quick it is to prepare mussels, and for me they're the ultimate fast food and quick supper. They're also excellent value for money. I know that Tom's already shown you, but we have two varieties here. We have dredged and we have rope grown. The dredged, when they actually dredge them, they can be very encrusted with barnacles, so they put them into a tumbling machine to knock some of those off, and that can damage the shells occasionally, and you may end up with some cracked shell. You also will find that you've got this little, what we call the byssus thread, or the beard, that's actually a bit of protein that the mussel spins, and it does that in order to have something to attach to a rock or rope or whatever it's growing on. That needs to be pulled away. The rope-grown mussels tend to have a slightly thinner shell, and they have a nice glossy shell, and also tend to have fewer barnacles. But if they do have, all you need to do is use the back of a knife. Don't blunt your best knives using scraping with that, but just the back of the knife just to trim away or scrape off any barnacles to make sure they're nice and clean. As with all shellfish or all bivalve mollusks, like mussels and oysters, you do need to make sure that they're absolutely tightly shut before you cook them. And what we need to do with those is just wash them and give them a little bit of a scrubbing. When you buy them, you very often just buy them in a string bag or a bag of sorts. You just want to pop those in the bottom of the fridge, but don't put them anywhere near water. The old method was to soak them in water, and we just know that that destroys the mussel. It's not good to eat. So just leave them at the bottom of the fridge, just covered with a damp cloth. Before you cook them, give them a bit of a scrubbing in water, remove the beard, but also check that they are still alive. And we have here a mussel that's actually open, and that would tell me that it's probably losing condition and might not be safe to eat. Now, to see whether that is going to shut, and it must be tightly shut, you use the percussion test, which is good tapping. And the tapping, that usually makes the mussel close up and shut. If there's no movement at all, I would say that was not safe to eat, and I would automatically discard it. You also want to discard any mussels that have any cracks or chips, because again, you don't quite know whether those are safe to eat. Having prepared your mussels, you can then look at the cooking aspect. We have two particular methods of cooking, and probably the most traditional is something like moule marinière, where they're steamed in a really lovely base of just white wine. Today, in the pan here, I have a little bit of softened shallots, just softened in a little bit of butter or olive oil, just for 2 or 3 minutes. I've added a little bit of cider to that. You can use white wine, actually beer works really well as well. And I've chosen a herb, and for me today, a nice sort of really wintry recipe would be to put some sage or rosemary. I put rosemary in there today. You want to bring that up to the boil and let that bubble away just to reduce the liquid a little bit. And it's imperative that you don't add salt at this stage. When you cook mussels, they can throw out quite a lot of salt, and that will make the whole dish taste really quite salty at the end. So avoid salt, but you can add black pepper. Once that's up to the boil, or just coming up to the boil, we're ready to add the mussels. And again, don't prepare these too far in advance. What we would do is just double check again that they're all nice and tightly shut. Those are going to go into my pan, and I've chosen today to cook some of the rope-grown mussels. Rope-grown tend to have a slightly thinner shell and take a little bit less time to cook, and you also get, I think, slightly better value for money. So for my preference, these are the ones that I'd actually choose. I'm going to pop those in there. They're all nice and tightly shut at this stage. I'm going to replace the lid, and I'm going to cook those on a high heat for 2 or 3 minutes until they've steamed open. At the end of that time, the mussel will be nicely nestled in one side of the shell. The shell will be nicely opened. If at that stage there are any that actually are still in a shell that's closed, don't attempt to eat them, just discard them, because again, it might be an indication that they are not safe to eat. That's method number one. A second method, which is also a really trendy and quick and easy method because it requires no finishing of the recipe at the end, is to cook these en papillote. And I have a paper heart here which has been cut out, so we've trimmed off the extra paper. I'm going to put just a handful of mussels in here, and then you can add any combination of flavours that you want. You could just put a little bit of garlic butter, or today I've just chosen to put a little ginger over those. Couple of little strands of red chilli. I'm going to take a lime wedge, and I'm just going to squeeze a bit of that lime on there just to create a little bit of juice. And also a splash of dark soy sauce and sesame oil, just a little bit in there, not too much. I don't think that's quite generous enough for a one-person serving, so I'm going to put a couple more in there. And then we're ready to seal that. And all I'm going to do is just twist the top of the paper case and just move those together, just to twist it, taking care that the mussel is completely encased in here, but not so tightly around the mussel that the steam can't circulate during the cooking process. Once that is really well sealed, we're going to bake that in a really, really hot oven, so gas mark 8. That's going to go directly onto a hot baking sheet, so you get the immediate shh as soon as it goes onto the baking sheet, into the hot oven, and just a few minutes to cook them through, and you can see through the paper how well opened they are. And those would be my two methods of cooking today. So I'm just going to check to see if the mussels are cooked. I'm going to lift the lid. And the mussels have opened really well. I'm going to be looking for anything that's still tightly shut, because that would indicate to me that it's not safe to eat. The mussels are all nicely nestled into their shell. If you overcook them, they will shrivel a little bit, so don't give them an extra minute or so. They all look fantastic. So I'm just going to bring a dish. I'm going to use a slotted spoon, lift the mussels out, pile them into the dish. And then what I then need to do is reduce the cooking liquid, and you can see here that actually the mussels have thrown out quite a lot of their own liquor, which actually makes them a really good addition to stocks, just for shellfish stock. And drain them off, pile them into a bowl, and once this is reduced down a little bit, I'm going to just whisk in my creme fraiche. So bring that up to the boil, and then I've got creme fraiche, which I will just whisk in. So whisk in some creme fraiche, bring that back up to the boil, taste for seasoning, and as already mentioned, generally speaking, you don't want to add any extra salt to that. I'm going to taste it for seasoning. It's got a lovely flavour, and that will create a really lovely juice and soup around the mussels for serving. And bring that back up to the boil, get it really nice and bubbling, and then pour it directly over my mussels, and they're ready to serve. And a really nice big bowl of warm French bread just to serve with that makes a perfect accompaniment. So the en papillotes come out of the oven, and all I'm going to do is just peel back the paper, or just open that out, and you get a lovely shot of hot steaming mussels with a little bit of liquid, and all you need to do is serve that with a little bit of bread.